Don't start anything tonight, she said, then pulled her ex aside for a private catch-up and told me to find my own table. I found one. At home. I left the restaurant, packed my things, and moved out. When she got home 3 hours later, the apartment was empty. My note: didn't start anything. Just finished it. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. You know that feeling when you realize you're not the main character in your own relationship? I'd been fighting that feeling for 2 years with Sarah. She had this way of making me feel small, like my need for respect was actually just insecurity. If I asked who she was texting late at night, I was controlling. If I asked why she canceled our plans to help a friend, I was needy. I spent 2 years walking on eggshells, trying to be the cool, secure boyfriend she claimed she wanted. It all came to a head last Friday. It was supposed to be a celebration, my promotion. I'd booked a table at Lucia's, this impossible-to-get-into Italian place downtown. I was wearing a new suit. She looked stunning in a red dress I'd bought her. For the first 10 minutes, things were perfect. Then, we got to the hostess stand. Sarah Miller. I felt her entire body tense up next to me. I looked over and saw a guy walking out of the bar area. Tall, stubble, leather jacket over a t-shirt. It was Mark, her ex. The one she described as toxic but intense. The one she had cried over a month before we met. Her face didn't look like someone seeing a toxic ex. She lit up. It was a brightness I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Mark. Oh my God, she breathed out, stepping away from me. He grinned, that lazy, arrogant smirk of a guy who knows he still has hooks in someone. Look at you, still killing it in red. He didn't even look at me. I was invisible, a prop. I stepped forward, extending a hand, trying to assert some presence. I'm David, Sarah's boyfriend. Mark barely flicked his eyes toward me. He didn't take my hand. He just looked back at Sarah and laughed. Boyfriend. Right. Good for you, Sarah. Safe choice. That was the moment. The disrespect was so loud it was deafening. I felt the heat rise in my neck. I opened my mouth to say something, to tell him to back off, to tell her we were leaving, but Sarah cut me off. She turned to me, her eyes hard and annoyed. She put a hand flat on my chest, not affectionately, but to hold me back. David, stop, she hissed. Don't start anything tonight. Start anything? I asked, my voice rising. He just disrespected me to my face. He's joking. That's just his sense of humor. Don't be so sensitive, she snapped, then glanced back at Mark like she was worried he would be offended by my existence. She lowered her voice. I haven't seen him in 3 years. I need to clear the air. It's important for my closure. Closure? We're at dinner. For my promotion. It'll take 10 minutes, she said, waving her hand dismissively. She wasn't asking. She was telling. She turned her back to me, angling her body toward Mark. Over her shoulder, she tossed the grenade that killed our relationship. Just go find us a table or something. Order me a glass of Pinot. I'll be there in a few minutes. Don't be weird about this. She grabbed Mark's arm, actually grabbed it, and guided him toward the patio doors. Let's go outside. It's too loud in here. I stood there. The hostess was staring at me. The couple behind us was staring at me. I was a grown man, standing in a crowded restaurant, being told to go sit in the corner like a scolded child while my girlfriend went on a mini date with her ex. The hostess cleared her throat. Sir, your table is ready. Shall I seat you? I looked at the patio door. I could see them through the glass. She was laughing, her hand touching his bicep. She looked alive. She looked like she was exactly where she wanted to be. And I realized, with a clarity that felt like ice water hitting my veins, I wasn't her boyfriend. I was her placeholder. I was the safe harbor she parked in while she waited for the storm to pass. I looked at the hostess. No, I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. I won't be needing the table. I turned around and walked out the front door. I didn't storm out. I didn't cause a scene. I walked to my car with the calm precision of a bomb disposal technician. I checked the time. 7:15 p.m. If she was clearing the air with Mark, and if the way she touched his arm was any indication, 10 minutes was a lie. They would have a drink. Maybe 2. They would reminisce. She would lose track of time because she didn't respect mine. I estimated I had at least 2 hours, maybe 3, before she even thought to check her phone. I drove home in silence. No radio. Just the hum of the engine and the new plan forming in my head. When I got to our apartment, I didn't feel sad. I felt efficient. I walked in and went straight to the bedroom. I didn't have time to move furniture, and frankly, I didn't want the couch. We bought it together. It was tainted. I wanted only what was mine. I wanted to execute an erasure. I grabbed a box of heavy-duty black trash bags from under the sink. Rip. Open. Fill. I cleared my side of the closet in 4 minutes. Suits, shirts, jeans, I didn't fold them. I swept them off the hangers directly into the bags. The sound of the hangers clattering together was the only noise in the room. Rip. Open. Fill. The bathroom drawer. My razor, my cologne, my prescription meds. I left the toothpaste. I left the shared soap. I took only what kept me alive and made me me. I moved to the living room. This was the most satisfying part. I unplugged my PS5. I took the switch. I took my laptop. Then, I went to the router. I paid the internet bill. The account was in my name. I unplugged the modem and the router and shoved them into my backpack. Petty? Maybe. But she wanted to communicate with her ex? She could use her own data. I went to the safe. Passport. Birth certificate. Watch collection. The emergency cash envelope. I worked up a sweat. I was moving like a blur. By 8:30 p.m., my car was packed floor to ceiling. The back seat was a mountain of black plastic bags. I walked back into the apartment for the final check. It didn't look like someone had moved out in a normal way. It looked like a rupture. My side of the vanity was bare. The closet was a gaping hole of empty space next to her colorful dresses. The entertainment center was a skeleton of wires dangling where the consoles used to be. I took the spare key off my ring. I placed it on the kitchen counter. I looked around for a piece of paper. I found a piece of junk mail, an offer for a credit card. I flipped it over. I took a Sharpie. I wanted to write a paragraph. I wanted to scream at her in ink. I wanted to list every time she made me feel small. But then I remembered the restaurant. I remembered her telling me, "Don't start anything." She wanted me to be quiet? Fine. I wrote 5 words. Didn't start anything. Just finished it. I left the note next to the key. I walked out the door and locked it one last time. I got into my car, started the engine, and pulled away. At 8:47 p.m., my phone screen lit up. Incoming call. Sarah read heart. I didn't decline it. I didn't answer it. I switched the toggle on the side of my phone to silent. I watched the screen glow for 30 seconds, then go dark. She was probably just now walking back to the table, finding it empty. She was probably annoyed. She probably thought I was in the bathroom or sulking in the lobby. She had no idea that she was currently dialing a ghost. I drove toward the highway. I had nowhere specific to go yet. Maybe a hotel, maybe my brother's place 3 towns over. But I had never felt more at home than I did in that car, driving away from a woman who told me to wait my turn. My turn was over. I checked into a Holiday Inn about 20 minutes away. I didn't go to a luxury hotel. I wasn't celebrating. I was bunkering down. I ordered a pepperoni pizza, cracked open a beer from the minibar, and sat on the bed. My phone was face down on the nightstand, vibrating against the wood every few minutes. BZZT. I didn't need to be in the apartment to know exactly how the timeline was playing out. I could reconstruct the crime scene just by listening to the voicemails later. Voicemail 1 to 8:55 p.m. David, where are you? I'm back at the table. The waiter said you left. Stop being dramatic and come pick me up. It's not funny. Tone annoyed. Entitled. She thinks I'm sitting in the parking lot, teaching me a lesson. Voicemail 2 to 9:15 p.m. Okay, seriously, pick up the phone. I'm standing outside. Mark already left. He had to meet some friends. I'm not paying for an Uber when you drove us here. This is so childish, David. Call me back. Tone angry. Shifting blame. Mark already ditched her, ironic. Voicemail 3 to 9:48 p.m. David, I'm home. Why are the lights not working? The Alexa isn't connecting. Pause. Heavy breathing. The sound of footsteps echoing on hardwood. David, where's the TV? Where's your computer? David, call me. Right now? You're scaring me. Tone. Confusion. The reality is starting to bleed in. Voicemail 4 to 9:52 p.m. Total breakdown. Sobs. I found the note. What do you mean finished it? You can't just leave. We live together. You took the router? Are you insane? Please, just come home. We can talk about this. I'm sorry I was with Mark so long, okay? I'm sorry. Just come back. I listened to that last one while chewing a slice of pizza. It was cold, detached curiosity. I didn't feel a pull to go comfort her. I didn't feel guilty. I just felt like I was watching a character in a movie realize the killer is already in the house. Except in this movie, the killer was the consequences of her own actions. I turned the phone off completely. I slept like a baby. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls and 30 texts. But the silence in that hotel room was the loudest, most peaceful thing I'd ever heard. I wasn't waiting for her approval. I wasn't wondering if I was enough. I was just free. The fallout began fast. When a person like Sarah, someone who relies on validation and financial safety nets, loses their footing, they don't self-reflect. They recruit allies. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Jessica, Sarah's best friend. Jessica had always tolerated me, treating me like a handy accessory that came with Sarah. I answered. I wanted to hear the spin. "You are a piece of sh*t, David." Jessica spat before I could even say hello. "Hello to you too, Jessica. She is a wreck. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. How could you just abandon her like that? Over a 5-minute conversation with an old friend? You're insecure, controlling, and honestly, terrifying. Who clears out an apartment in 3 hours? Someone who doesn't want to stay where he isn't respected," I said calmly. "Respected? She told you to grab a table. She was trying to manage a delicate situation with an ex, and you threw a tantrum." "Jessica," I cut in, my voice flat. "She didn't tell me to grab a table. She told me not to start anything. She told me to go sit alone while she drank with the guy she used to sleep with on the night celebrating my promotion. She prioritized his ego over my dignity. She told me to go away. So I went away. She loves you. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. And tell her not to worry about the rent. I paid through the end of the month. She has 28 days to figure out how to pay for a 2-bedroom apartment in the city on a receptionist salary. Or maybe she can ask Mark to move in." I hung up and blocked Jessica. Speaking of Mark, that was the sweetest piece of accidental justice. I found out later through a mutual friend what happened with the savior. Once I was gone, Sarah immediately tried to pivot to Mark. She texted him, probably looking for a shoulder to cry on, maybe hoping this was fate clearing the path for them to be together. Mark left her on red. Turns out, Mark wasn't looking to reconnect. He was just passing through town, bored, and saw an old flame he could get an ego boost from. Once he realized she came with baggage, a fresh breakup, a missing boyfriend, and high emotional needs, he vanished. He blocked her on Instagram 3 days after the restaurant incident. She had burned her castle to the ground for a guy who wouldn't even buy her a second drink. Then came the financial reality check. I made good money. I paid 70% of our bills. Sarah's salary barely covered her car payment, her student loans, and her shopping habits. Without my half of the rent, without me paying for groceries, Wi-Fi, and utilities, the math didn't work. She tried to stay in the apartment. I kept my distance, communicating only through email regarding the lease. I told the landlord I was vacating. 3 weeks later, I got an automated email from the leasing office. The full rent hadn't been paid. Sarah sent me one email during this time. No subject line. "I can't afford this place alone. You promised to take care of me. How can you be this cruel?" I didn't reply. I wasn't being cruel. I was just no longer subsidizing a life that didn't include me. She ended up having to break the lease. She lost her security deposit. Last I heard, she had to move back in with her parents. The same parents she constantly complained were suffocating and toxic. She was 30 years old, sleeping in her childhood twin bed, surrounded by boxes of clothes she had no closet space for. The placeholder was gone. And without the placeholder, the whole structure collapsed. It had been 4 months. My life had quieted down in the best way possible. I found a new place, a loft closer to the office, smaller but entirely mine. No shared aesthetic, no walking on eggshells. I killed it in my new role at work, free from the constant text anxiety that used to plague my afternoons. I was sleeping better. I looked better. I hadn't heard from Sarah since the email about the rent. I assumed she had faded into the background of her hometown. Another what-if story people tell at bars. Then, she ambushed me. It was a Tuesday around 8 a.m. I was at the coffee shop near my office, waiting for a pour-over. I was checking emails on my phone, feeling good in a tailored coat I'd bought with the money I wasn't spending on her credit card debt. "David." The voice was familiar, but thin. lacking the sharpness it used to have. I turned around. Sarah was standing there. She looked diminished. That's the only word for it. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She wasn't wearing makeup, and she looked tired. Not had a long night tired. Deeply tired. The kind of tired that comes from living in your childhood bedroom and arguing with your mother about laundry at age 30. Sarah, I said. My voice was neutral, professional, like I was greeting a vendor I had canceled a contract with. Can we talk? She asked. Her eyes darted around the busy shop. Just for 5 minutes? Please. I checked my watch. I have to get to work. David, please, she whispered. Her voice cracked. I need to see you. I need to explain. I looked at her. I didn't feel the anger I expected. I didn't feel the love I used to think was essential to my survival. I just felt a mild inconvenience. You can walk me to my building, I said. You have 3 minutes. We walked out onto the sidewalk. The morning air was crisp. She struggled to keep up with my pace. I messed up, she blurted out. I know I did. Mark, he was nothing. He was just a ghost from the past, and I got caught up in the moment. He stopped replying to me days after you left. It was stupid. I threw away everything for nothing. I know, I said, keeping my eyes forward. I miss you, David, she said, reaching out to touch my arm. I sidestepped it smoothly, not breaking stride. Her hand fell to her side. I miss us, she continued, desperation creeping into her tone. I miss our home. My parents, it's a nightmare. I'm sleeping in a twin bed. I miss talking to you. I miss my best friend. I stopped then. We were a block from my office. I turned to face her. You don't miss me, Sarah, I said, my voice calm and factual. You miss the apartment. You miss the safety. You miss having someone to project your insecurities onto so you don't have to deal with them yourself. You miss the placeholder. She flinched. That's not fair. I loved you. You told me to go sit alone at a restaurant while you flirted with another man. I reminded her. That isn't love. That's management. You were managing me. And I resigned. She started to cry. It wasn't the manipulative crying of the past. It was the realization that her old tricks were hitting a brick wall. Can't we just start over? She begged. Please. Just coffee. Just a drink. Let me prove I can be better. Let's just start fresh. I looked at her, really looked at her, one last time. I saw the regret, sure, but I also saw the entitlement still lurking underneath. She still thought she could negotiate my dignity. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Start over. I repeated. I leaned in slightly, delivering the final echo of the night that changed everything. Sarah, you were the one who told me not to start anything. You wanted me to stay in my lane, keep my mouth shut, and not make a scene. So I'm doing exactly what you asked. David, I'm not starting anything, I said firmly. I'm finished. I turned around and walked toward the glass doors of my office building. I didn't look back. I didn't check to see if she was watching. I walked through the lobby, swiped my badge, and stepped into the elevator. As the doors slid shut, hiding the street from view, I let out a long breath. I had finally found my table, and it was exactly where I wanted it to be. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.